Okay, what I got to say is this precipitous drop that we've been through in the United States dollar. Now, you know, I'm the first one to tell you guys that the dollar's going out and it's going to go down into a hyperinflation. But what I'm going to tell you right now might kind of shock you is I don't think that this precipitous drop in the dollar right now, I think it's premature. I think the dollar is going to go up before it goes down. And I'm going to explain to you why I think this. Now, you remember I've been talking to you about a deflationary shock event that's coming. And it's after this deflationary shock event is over that the dollar is going to go down the toilet hole. And you'll know when you're in the hyperinflation. It's not going to be like it is now. Everything's going to change when the hyperinflation occurs. But we're not there yet. Right now, what we're headed toward is something altogether different. And this is going to be support for the dollar. Now, don't you think for a second that the Federal Reserve doesn't notice this precipitous drop in the dollar. And that they're not going to take action in the form of raising interest rates. Now, let's take a look. What we're going to find is Japan is held off tightening for now. But the thing about it is Japan is going to end the period of negative interest rates. They're going to bring it to an end. Japan. This is the direction they're working in. Not so much tightening the monetary policy and ending their monetary stimulus, but more bringing an end to their negative interest rates. So there's that. But if we take a look at Great Britain themselves with the pound, they're going to tighten policy. So, having surged earlier in the day, the pound, this is today, unexpected hawkish Bank of England statements moments ago jumped to fresh session highs, with the Bank of England Governor Mark Carney said the pound's decline is boosting prices, and added that he is among the majority of MPC with a view that policy may need to be tightened in coming months. So, what we're seeing here is in support of the pound. You know, they're going to support the pound. And the Bank of Canada just recently has tightened monetary policy also. They've raised the interest rate, supporting the Canadian dollar. And so what do we see in the European Union with Mario Draghi? The euro is surging against the dollar. Draghi says quantitative easing tightening talks will start in September. So they're going to start tightening in Europe. Now, this is what's been supporting the world right now, is Japan and Europe. That's been supporting the world quite recently. And the quantitative easing, especially in Europe, 80 billion euro per month. 80 billion euros a month has been supporting. So, what we're going to see here is talks that will start in September from Mario Draghi to start ending their quantitative easing program. So, this is the beginning of the end. But they have to do this to support their currencies. They have to do this. They're forced into a corner. They've been painted themselves into a corner, and they have to do this at this point. But what it's going to do is it's going to cause something called complexity theory. How that works is, I'll explain it to you this way. Say you had a guy that's walking on a tightrope, you know, a tightrope walker. And this is what the world's economy is like. He has this long pole. Now, a lot of people don't notice the pole. They look at the tightrope, they look at the tightrope walker, and they go, ooh, ah, you know, look at what he can do. Isn't that amazing? Well, what they don't realize is there's a trick to it. That long pole is the trick. That long pole makes it so he can balance very easily on that tightrope. Now, if you were to narrow that pole down, make it narrower and narrower and narrower, the narrower that pole gets, the harder it is for him to walk on that tightrope and hold his balance. And that's the way with the economy. Complexity theory is the more unbalanced the economy gets, more strains get on the economy with more debt, the loaded debt. And debt is credit. So what they've done is they've built up all of this massive amounts of credit in the banking system. And when they do these stress tests and stuff, what they're actually saying is, hey, you know, we've got a lot of credit. Well, how did they create that credit? Is by creating debt. The opposite side of the credit is the debt. When all of that delevers, see what they've done is they've levered the system up. It's leverage. When it delevers suddenly. It's like the tightrope walker on the balancing on the wire. The thing he balances with is getting narrower and narrower and narrower. And so by them tightening all around the world, what they're doing is they're making that balance harder and harder to achieve. And what they're doing is they're trying to balance the system. But the system's getting harder and harder to balance, and when it delevers, it's going to delever suddenly, and they're going to lose their balance, and they're going to fall. Basically, this is the analogy that I'm trying to get you to understand. So, these quantitative easing talks will start in September. So we're looking at this fall, we're looking at things getting tighter and tighter in the world's financial system, and then all of a sudden, the deflationary shock event will come out of nowhere. It'll probably appear as a precipitous fall in the markets. A really fast fall in the markets. Fast and sudden. Nobody will have saw it coming. And they're going to have to react to this. And their automatic reaction is going to be to turn the ship around. To change direction. Do a 180-degree turn from the way that they have been going. And go in the opposite direction. It's when they do that, that is when you're going to get your crash, your real crash in the dollar. This thing that we got going on right now is not a real crash in the dollar, because when this deflationary shock event comes, when it's on during it, it's not going to last very long. I'll call it the shortest recession in history, because of how short it's going to be. It's going to be such a short-lived thing. They're going to have to react to it so fast because it's going to be so vicious that they're going to react to it fast. But during it, the dollar is going to increase in value. Everybody's going to run into what they consider to be safe havens. You know, they're gonna deleverage the system, and they're all going to try to run into cash. And they're going to drive it up at first. But then when the Fed reacts to all of this, with their monetary creation tool, which is the one tool that they have in their bag. They have a bag of tools, and there's only one tool in it. There's a hammer. And that hammer is making money. Now they don't make money in the form of running it through a printing press, so it's not really printing. But they can push a key on a computer, and they can make trillions. And this is what they'll do. Do not underestimate how much money that they will actually create when they're in this pinch to end this crisis that's going to occur. And this crisis is going to be worse than 2008. It's going to appear suddenly. It's going to be a shock to this whole entire financial system. Now, here's the thing. This crisis wouldn't necessarily have to occur. We could go into the hyperinflation if they were to leave the system alone right now and not tighten their monetary policy right now. If they were to go back to a loose monetary policy right now and just basically open the floodgates of money, if they were to say, hey, you know, we're all going to quit tightening. Mario Draghi said, okay, we're just going to forget these talks, and instead of 80 billion euros a month, we're going to go to 100. And if the United States says, okay, we're going to go back to quantitative easing again, and we're going to drop interest rates back down to 0 or even negative. And if the Bank of England says, okay, we're going to do the same, and so the Bank of Canada and everybody, just sort of drop interest rates back down to zero or below sub-zero somewhat, they could go a quarter point, you know, or even a half a point, sub-zero. All of a sudden, the stock market would go up 3,000 points the first day. Money would be flowing everywhere, and the velocity of money would start to pick up. It would filter down. If they pump enough money into the system, it will filter down through the system. But they've been tightening. They've been tightening and tightening and tightening. And for all those guys out there who say, oh no, they're not tightening, they're doing backdoor whatever. No, they've been tightening. They have been tightening. And this is why the economy is in a pinch. This is why retail is having a hard time and everything. This is why the economy is in a pinch, is because they've been tightening. But they've been very careful about their tightening, not to take us down into a very deep, dank recession. But they're going to. They're going to because of complexity theory, because the tightrope is getting harder and harder to walk. And all of a sudden, the whole thing's going to fall. But they're forced in that direction because they don't want to go into a hyperinflation. See, the whole thing is getting harder and harder to hold together as time goes by. And they've done I'm going to tell you what, I got to give credit where credit is due. They have kept this thing together longer than anyone out there has thought possible. And this is why so many thought that they were going to have the crisis back in 2012, 2013, 14, 15, 16, you know, and it didn't come in all those years. It's because they have managed to hold this thing together by kicking the can down the road better and balance this thing better, but they're finally getting to the point where they cannot balance this Ponzi scheme anymore. Ponzi schemes always end the same way, and this is a Ponzi scheme. It's a royal big Ponzi scheme, and it's going to end the same way as everything else. So listen, thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you in the next article.